空の朝眩しかった日のこと、そんな冬の日のこと。
Spring 1996. Setsumi.
確かに幼い頃から丈夫な方じゃなかった。
Even so, I attended elementary school like all the others, and during summer break, I often played until I was utterly tanned. June, shortly after my entry into middle school. The day after I ordered a swimsuit for use of the next month. My first hospitalization. On a day just before the first semester midterms. On a day when the first drops of rain were so cruelly cold. Falling from amidst the pure white of the overcast sky. Of course, the first time it happened, all my classmates came to visit me almost every day. And when I was released, they even came to my house on the weekends to play. But that was only the first time around. Autumn into winter, winter into spring, a vicious cycle. Hospitalization, release, clinics, and hospitalization again. Before I knew it, even the classmates I once called friends turned into acquaintances. And then into strangers. As if with every changing of seasons, I was being erased from their collective memory.
どうやらいい気がしないらしい。普通に生きている人にとって私の存在ってのは、だから消されたようだった。いくつもの季節を、白い梅雨空を、誰とも言葉を交わす必要もなく過ごした。私の英語の教科書は1年生の中間テスト以降まっさらな状態だった。そこで私の時間も止まったらしい。
Early summer 2004. Protagonist 8 years later. Summer, flowing sweat. A gigantic electronic scoreboard in the driver license examination facility. Lit up all at once. My eyes and everyone else's looked for our respective numbers. 237, 237. And of some 8 columns of lit text, sure enough, my examination number was shining in the mist. A nearly empty train car, perhaps thanks to the beautiful afternoon. Almost alone in that train car, I was heading back home for the examination hall. My left hand held a new traffic regulation handbook. My breast pocket held my brand new driver's license. So now I've got a license as well. I muttered somewhat happily, but there were no strong feelings behind it. I never particularly wanted to drive a car. I never particularly had any motive for it. It was just that my colleagues in the Technical Institute both recommended that I at least get a driver's license. That night, when I told my parents that I'd gotten my license, they merely replied with a, "I see." And then when I asked if I could borrow the car, just for a test run, they instantly and curtly said just one thing: no. While I didn't really want to drive the car or anything, the response was all too expected. Those were my parents for you. The next day, I awoke with chest pain and went to the hospital. Sickness and I generally had nothing to do with each other, which is why I found the ER waiting room to be utterly boring. And when I just thought they were through examining me, they ordered an X-ray and some blood tests. Then they left. And again, I was left waiting for a long, long time. I had already polished off 3 volumes of Shonen Jump. I was just about to start on the 4th when they admitted me to the hospital right then and there. And it seemed that my new license, which still lay snugly in my breast pocket, would have to wait a long time for its turn to come. Protagonist, Autumn 2004. Right around when the all too noisy cicadas had finally gone silent, I once again found myself in the hospital, as per usual. Of course, it wasn't as if I had been there the entire time. I came and went, a futile cycle. My first surgery was a month ago. After that, I started doing the 5-minute commute to and from the hospital by moped. And from then on, I was hospitalized, discharged, ordered to clinic, and hospitalized. Again, and again. While I still had no clue what PET and Isra and stood for in no time at all, several months had already passed. As my appetite decreased, my medication increased. I could feel my own physical strength atrophying away. I kept imagining that my legs were getting thinner, but the needle of the weight scale rudely informed me, it's not just your imagination. And yet I kept looking on at myself with detached interest, as if it were happening to someone else entirely, as if I was looking at a screen on TV or the like. My mind could not grasp what had so suddenly happened to my body. Nothing within me was telling me that this was real at all. And that's why, even though it was all happening to me, I kept looking on as if it were happening to someone far away. Protagonist, Winter 2004. a day of winter, around when the Christmas trees had vanished from the streets. I was discharged home as a kind of year's end treat. It seemed like an exercise in total transient, but still, it made me slightly happy. I had traveled back to a home I had not seen in a long time, in the midst of freezing rain. Strangely enough, my entire family was there. My parents, who had never so much as talked to me, came out to meet me, if with terribly stilted smiles. And my little sister, whom I've never had a pleasant word, had made my favorite cream stew and fried shrimp just for me. They made me sit at the table. They peeled tangerines for me. They were cruelly kind. It was an impressive display. At this point, a little thought occurred to me about my new driver's license, which was still stuffed away in my pocket. That perhaps things would end for the license without it ever having known any use. And surrounded by a trio of stilted, strained smiles, I kept that thought as if it were someone else's business, with dispassion, ambiguity, and total disinterest. January 2005, protagonist. A new year began, and I returned to the hospital. But on this day, instead of my usual 4F room, I ended up in a conference room of sorts. They took me there. And then, my father and the doctors had a little talk. I joined in. Well, they talked to me. So this was their so-called announcement. They said it in a terribly roundabout fashion, but they told me that I was going to die. I see. That was my only reply. I had no other words. That was the only thing that left my mouth from beginning to end. And the doctor's ballpoint pens flew across paper as if in response to my words. Those were probably hospice enrollment procedures, business-like to the last. My father was the same. So it's that simple. Was the only real thought I had. That day, I was transferred from 4F to 7F, from a 6-person room to a private room. It was a little different from the other wards, this 7F. First of all, the floors were sparkling clean, and second of all, the ceiling was higher than I'd ever seen it. The rooms were really nice, and had large windows from which the warm daylight streamed in as if by design. But the windows only opened a little. I tested them out, and my head would barely fit out of one. The color of my ID bracelet had changed as well. The bracelet that I had worn ever since the first hospitalization, the one that had my name and blood type recorded on it. Its color had now changed from blue to white. A high ceiling, a white vinyl bracelet, a window that would not open more than 15 centimeters. The TV programs celebrating the new year were still playing when I transferred to this 7F. And it was at the dawn of this very year that I met her for the first time.
Narcissus. 冬7回
Winter 2005, 7F. There was this place, kind of like a lounge at one side of the corridor, across from the nurse's station. This generally deserted place held a few couches and chairs, as well as a large TV. Stupid programs commemorating the new year were still being broadcast on this 28-inch screen. And there was a girl who looked absolutely bored watching that absolutely boring TV. Short, in pink pajamas, a white bracelet on her wrist, just like mine. Impressively long hair that almost reached down to her hips. Hey, do you find that interesting? There was no deep purpose in the asking. Simply, I had nothing else to do, so I started talking to her.
別に
Was her only reply. She didn't turn to face me at all. And she kept looking on with boredom at that TV, as if I didn't even exist. Then don't watch it. Even as I thought this, I sat down in a chair next to her. And side by side, we watched TV. Nothing else to do. Nothing we could do. So we sat there silently and watched TV. New Year celebration programs, as per usual. A useless array of comedians and oddities. And every so often, the MC's stupid, shrill laughter resounded dryly in this white, sun-drenched lounge.
ねえあなた
The girl suddenly started talking to me, but her eyes were always glued to the TV screen.
あなた何回目
What do you mean by that?
ここに7階に来たの
Sorry, I have no clue what you're talking about.
そう初めてなんだね
So she had seen my confusion about her question and come to the right conclusion.
じゃあ他に誰もいないし私の役目だから
Duty?
そういうルールなの
Nodding slightly, she explained the rule was that someone here, 7F, should tell newcomers the truth. I knew nothing. I understood even less. And as if I did not even exist, she slowly started her speech.
それじゃあよく聞いてね。
Her words, spoken methodically, one by one, were a little different from the ones I had heard from the doctors about this place. In their business-like, crisp, syntactic, they told me, "This is a place where one waits for medical advances. This is a place where one heals one heart." And perhaps they might have been correct in a general sense. But according to the girl, that was just a party line. The truth was that this 7F was the only place in the hospital where medical treatments did not take place. This was just a place where you waited for your life to come to an end. Those were her words to me. I had thought so as well. I had felt it even before she had spoken.
私2回目だから。
Second time doing what?
ここに来るの。
And then she explained it to me. That nobody on 7F stayed here from initial hospitalization all the way until death. While there was zero possibility of being cured, you were sent home if your condition was stable. But if it worsened again, you would be returned here. That cycle only ended in death. Whether it was at home or here on 7F, always one of the two. You were going to die. No way to escape it, it seemed. And with that meaning permeating her every word, she informed me that this was her second time up here.
じゃあ一度しか言わないから、ここからはよく聞いて。
She continued speaking, all the while staring at the blank TV screen. This wasn't idle chit-chat about when the light's out, or where the kitchen was, or anything like that. This was something completely different. The third time you were discharged home, resign yourself. There won't be a fourth time. You'll never go home again. If you ever want to escape, head towards the B station, not the A station. Eat nothing. That is the simplest shortcut. You leave the smallest burden on your family that way. It was as if she was packed to the brim with matters like those. That was probably oral tradition, relevant only to those who were going to die, and kept by those who came here for that purpose. So this The duty that you were talking about?
ええ、そうよ。いつかあなたも初めて来た人には伝えてね。
With those words, she slowly stood up. She casually tossed her long hair, and it grazed my nose.
じゃあ、検温の時間だから。
Then she turned her back and started walking down the corridor. Now completely deserted save for me. The lounge held only the laughter from the TV and the white flowers by the windowsill. In the end, she didn't even look at me once.